Good evening. It's 6:30, so the meeting will come to order. I want to welcome you to the Pasco School Board meeting this evening. Thank you for attending and for your interest in Pasco Public Schools. Understand that while it may appear that the board is moving quickly on important matters, there have been previous opportunities for discussions on issues either in earlier meetings, study sessions, or in board workshops, which are also open public meetings. Each director's had sufficient time to study the issues that we were talking about, ask questions, and obtain satisfactory answers from the district staff or through their own independent research. As directors, we strive to understand the issues brought before us and to make decisions that we believe are in the best interest of all the students of Pasco and the taxpayers who provide the funding. And in an effort to expand the availability of study sessions and board meeting proceedings and increase transparency, we now record these events for broadcast on Pasco or PSC TV, which is Charter Cable Channel 191. The study session that we had at 4:30 today and this board recording will also be available on the district's YouTube site. Finally, we're fortunate to have 3 student board representatives over here to my left. They cannot legally vote on issues, but they're a very important part of our team and the board's decision-making process. They participate in many board activities and functions throughout the year and are vital in helping us keep focus and putting students first. We also have a board brochure in the back as you walked in by the sign-in area there, which describes the process on how we run our board meetings here and protocol. So if you are interested in that, feel free to pick one of those up. And now we will have the flag salute, and we have Ochoa Middle School Principal Jacqueline Ramirez here.
Good evening, President Lehrman, board members, and Deputy Superintendent Whitney. Yes. Tonight we have a special group of Ochoa students. We have a National Junior Honor Society program at Ochoa, and I'm going to let their advisor, Melissa Allred, introduce our students who will be leading us in the flag salute.
Today we have our president, Jose Pimentel, Jessica Lincoln, secretary or treasurer, Jarrell Torres, public relations, Fatima Mendez, vice president, Nicole Valtierra, secretary, Estela Vergara, historian.
Please rise for the flag salute.
Ready? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So thank you to our student leaders for coming here and leading us in the flag salute. The 3 students presenting you guys with the Pride of Pasco pins there are student leaders in high school, and we encourage all students in the district to apply for those positions when they're of high school age.
President Lehrman, I do have some parents here that I'd like to acknowledge if I can. Tonight with us we have Santos Pimentel. Could you please stand? Santos, por favor, de pararse, is one of our parents. We have Martín Méndez, si gustan pararse. And we also have María Méndez and César Alfaro. And we also have Lorena Vázquez and Ana Alicia Guizar. Gracias. Thanks for coming.
And Ms. Smith will call the roll.
Mr. Christensen?
Present.
Mr. Richardson?
Present.
Ms. Lankin?
Present.
Mr. Bergstrom?
Present.
Mr. Lehrman?
Present.
Mr. Mendoza?
Present.
Ms. Phillips?
Present.
Mr. Mojica?
Present.
Next we have Ms. Leslie Call with special recognition.
Good evening, President Lehrman, Deputy Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. Tonight, it is my pleasure to present to you the Pasco Citizens for Better Schools. Would you please come forward to be honored when I call your name? Jamie Southworth, who's the chairman, Courtney Stenson, who's the treasurer, Emily Maloney, who is the secretary, Anna Armijo, Yvonne Rodriguez, Heidi Redfield, Kim Lehrman, Anna Peralta, Ravine Jimenez, Steve Allen, Richard Job, Aaron Lewis, Matthew Polk, Lauren Polk, and Howard Roberts. And did I miss anybody? Should we give them pins? Do you have someone else? Oh, and Greg Olson.
Want to give them pins? Is there a note?
Jamie gave me the list. And I think you had some other people that helped as well that aren't here tonight. But let me tell you about these great people. So school districts can provide educational information on elections, but we cannot tell voters how to cast their votes. Where the district must stop, the Pasco Citizens for Better Schools carry on by asking voters to support the children of Pasco. Since last fall, this dedicated group has been meeting to plan a pathway to election success. They have attended public meetings, spoken to groups and clubs, gone out on blustery winter days to put up signs, written letters, made phone calls, stood in intersections waving signs, posted content on social media sites, and talked to their friends and neighbors about the importance of levy dollars. In the next 2 years, Pasco students will have vision and hearing tests because they have nurses. Librarians will be there for our students to help them find the perfect book. Our schools will be well-maintained, clean, and ready for students who will participate in music and arts programs, all because the levy passed, thanks to the hard work of the Pasco Citizens for Better Schools. And so tonight, you've got your Pride of Pasco pins, and we'd also like to award you with a keychain to serve as a reminder of how much we appreciate your work and also that your dedication is the key to unlocking success for Pasco students.
There we go. Now it's official.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to the Pasco Citizens for Better Schools, and thank you to everybody who is not part of that group, but also helped spread the message and talk to their neighbors, friends, family, and help make this a community effort in passing this essential funding source for our district. All right, next we will have approval of the minutes. So I'd open it up for a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the meeting minutes of February the 9th, 2016.
I second it.
There is a motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes from February 9th, 2016. Those in favor, please say yes. Yes. Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Next, we'll have the agenda review.
I would like to call your attention under Reports 9A, Policy 7251, Surplus of Property and Materials has been removed. I would also like to note that under Consent Agenda Item A, there's been a revision under Personnel. We are not requesting an executive session this evening.
Okay, next we'll have audience comment. In just a moment, I'll invite up audience members for comments. All comments and questions will be noted. If you ask a question and would like a response, please ensure that you've signed in on the list in the back of the room there with your contact information. Ms. Whitney will use this contact information to respond or have district staff respond to questions. If you do not feel that your question has been adequately addressed by district staff, please feel free to contact the board via email or phone with your additional concerns. I would remind everyone that this is the regular business meeting of the Pasco School District Board of Directors held in public. It is not a public forum for two-way dialogue. The board has begun providing two-way dialogue opportunities for the community, and we will continue this practice. We would ask that if you have a comment, please approach the microphone and state your name and your affiliation with the school district. And you'll have 2 minutes. Ms. Cloud will be keeping time. When she holds up the yellow folder, you'll have 30 seconds remaining, and the red folder signals that your time is up. If the red folder is raised up, you don't need to cut your thought in the middle, but please finish that thought without starting additional comments. So the microphone is open.
Hello, my name is Erin Hall-Lewis. I am a member of the community, a parent, and a member of the Levy Committee. I wanted to first off say that I am so incredibly proud of our district, of our community. We pretty much defied statistics in passing a levy after such a difficult summer. It shows how incredibly dedicated not only committee members and parents are, but the entire community is to education. I think that working in the levy committee for me was an eye-opening experience. I definitely got to experience things I never have before. It makes me appreciate the kind of work that's done here. It also gave me an opportunity to have some interesting and kind of uncomfortable conversations with my neighbors. I put that sign in my front yard, and I've got some retired neighbors across the street who immediately had some things to say to me. I've had to explain the position that we're in, but also come to understand some serious concerns that our community has. And especially moving forward, I think that it's really important for us as engaged members of this district and community to understand. The community needs trust rebuilt. Our levy passed, but right now, based on just the study session that we saw, we are busting at the seams, I believe was the term used. We desperately need bonds to pass. In order to do that, strong community goodwill must be rebuilt. It doesn't matter whose fault it was or where the blame you think should lie, but we must rebuild community trust. I think a couple of things that we can do to make sure that happens is to immediately implement a performance audit of our district so that we can show everyone without a shadow of a doubt we are using our funds and personnel well, and also to establish a permanent and ongoing adoption of curriculum so that we never run into the problem we did this summer again, so that we have a set schedule in place and we always know where our curriculum is coming from and when it will be updated. I think that doing those two things will go a long way toward building goodwill with the voters and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. We have discussed audits in our study sessions. If you want to look, and not you, but if any community members want to look back at our last study session, and appreciate the comments on the curriculum.
Good evening. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Matthew Polk. I'm a parent of Pasco students, and I'm also a teacher in Pasco High School and Captain Gray Elementary School. And I'm here tonight to celebrate the good work that our Pasco guitar and mariachi students have been doing. One of the things I'm very proud of in Pasco is our supporting of the arts, our supporting of the arts funding of student involvement. This last month, within the last month, our students have participated in STEM Possible Nights. They've done a lot of cool things, but they have also been representing Pasco really well in competitions. Many of you may not know that Pasco High School has one of the largest guitar programs in the Western United States, and our students from Pasco High School in Chihuahua swept the regional solo and ensemble contest. We held every single place. No other school even placed because we had so many students that took part and scored well. Additionally, Just the other day, I found out that 7 of our students were accepted to the Northwest Guitar Festival in Moscow, Idaho. It's a big honor and a privilege. But one of the things that concerns me is that funding for guitar and mariachi programs severely lags behind any other kind of performing music program in the Pasco School District. You know, I also teach 5th grade elementary music, and my students all have a school-issued violin. My high school students, however, who are competing at the highest levels, don't have access to their own instruments. They have to stay after school, they come in at lunch, they come in before school. And despite bringing this up to building administrators and many of you on the board, it's not been solved yet. And I would encourage you to develop a policy that we could create equity. Many of these programs that serve in the guitar and mariachi program, they serve our most diverse student population. They serve the lowest economic student body. And I'm finding over and over again that that those are the students who are least served by our funding strata, and I'd ask that we find a way to change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polk.
My name is Greg Olson, and I am a parent of 2 ex-music students, and I'm going to give my time to Matthew, please.
Thank you very much. I also found out this week, I wanted to discuss a parent issue that I've been experiencing and that I've also seen affecting my students. I found out this week that Pasco High School is holding a Mathletes versus Athletes Spirit Day this week. This strikes me as totally inappropriate, and it appears to be as code for nerds versus jocks. And especially for those of you who are engineers on our board, I hope that you'll equally find offensive this as me as well. I was under the impression that Pasco High School celebrated student work in all facets of school, academics, athletics, and the arts. However, this sort of activity seems to only reinforce negative stereotypes. They're a disservice to our students and offensive to our mission as a place of learning. Offensive Spirit Day themes are not acceptable merely because they're selected by students. It's our responsibility as educators and parents to help guide these students to do things that are not insensitive and not offensive. And we need to not pit athletics and academics and arts against each other. We need to celebrate the fact that our students can be involved in these. And I would encourage you as a board to develop a policy that would help to show sensitivity to our students. That being said, we're doing many things right now that do not represent gender equity in our schools. I've been seeing things like, clearly, you know, we have issues when we refer to our basketball teams as Bulldogs and Lady Bulldogs. We have issues when we have Purple and White Day, and girls are given white graduation robes at the end of the year. Boys are given purple robes. It's an issue where purple is the big color. We see things like twerp dances where girls are asking guys. That's the term. Instead of just saying girls ask. You know, we're getting to a place where we need to be aware of the messages that we're sending and accept the fact that in 2016 in modern society things have changed, and we need to be reinforcing positive ideas and not negative stereotypes. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I would say we don't want to make common practice, I didn't cut you off, but of donating time to somebody else. The intent is that each person gets 2 minutes, but I do appreciate the comments.
Good evening, President Lehrman, Deputy Superintendent Whitney, and the board. My name is Jake Covington, and I'm the ASB president at Pasco High School. The students who put together these Spirit Day weeks, we like to have student input on these days, and it's not just like one thing where a group of kids comes up with the same Spirit Days over the year. It's a thing where we, a rundown of how we do it is we have a committee selected through the leadership class who is a class of student representatives that represent the class or the students in the high school. And a a group of those kids is brought together, and we go and look up things that other schools have done and how it has been fun for those kids, and really just to make a really positive, uplifting experience for the kids at the school. And we come together, get a bunch of ideas, have the kids present it to the leadership teacher. He goes over things that say what would be school appropriate, not school appropriate. We've had things turned down like pajama day because, there's some kids who might take the pajama day thing too far. We go over, ask students what they think about things. We can't get a hold of every student at the school, so we try to get the majority that we can with a small group of kids in the leadership class that we do have. We ask them what they think on the ideas, then we come back, meet as a whole, and vote on them. So I do agree that addressing negative stereotypes and things like that is not a good thing to do in school and not a positive thing. But the Spirit Weeks we do come up with are ones that we have seen work in other high schools and really have brought kids to just have more fun at school, because you spend the whole year working on grades and trying to maintain a GPA and trying to do better and go on to college, and you kind of forget to have fun sometimes. So that's just something we do to lighten the mood, not really to address negative stereotypes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. We always appreciate having students come and speak to us and enlighten us on what's going on in their schools.
So are you the Jake Covington that wrestled at state this last weekend?
Yes.
Congratulations. Second place, right?
Hi. Oops, sorry. I'm under the weather. My name is Avery Bell, and I am a leadership student. Sorry, really under the weather. So referring to the scholars versus ballers, so I'm a part of the Pasco High dance team. Sorry, you saw me last week. Didn't sound like this. But I'm also, I would say, what's a great term? I have a 3.6 cumulative GPA, so I could go under the scholar. So I'd like to say that it's hard when it's like a day like that. It's fun. The, let's see, like nerd. I don't think Pasco High, that we kind of conquered that. A lot of our athletes are like well educated students from in our community. And so I'm excited for those days. Like we're like, oh, what should we do? Can we wear our uniforms, or should we throw those cool glasses on that are trending? So I don't find it offensive at all, but I understand where that could be an issue in our community. But I think it's fun because we do lose sight of what's going on, kind of. So we want to have fun and be involved, and I like those days. But that's just me personally. But I thank you for giving me this time and listening to me when I sound like this. And so thank you guys.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Bell. Hopefully you recover from that sickness.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Stinson, and I just wanted to remind people that we're here tonight. There's an upcoming event on Saturday. It's the Pasco Education Foundation Scholarship Dinner, and we'll be featuring some of our best and brightest talent with our jazz bands. CHS and PHS Jazz Band will be there. We'll be honoring a former teacher, and we'll also be raising funds so that we can award scholarships to future graduates. So if you're not doing anything Saturday, the 27th at 6 p.m., you can come and have a really good time and hang out with me. I'll be there, but there'll be some other people too. So it's a good cause, and it's really important for those kids. I've heard them talk about what they've done with their scholarships.
Is this something they need to register for? What's the...
If you want to go, you can go to the Pasco Education Foundation website, and there's more information on ticket cost and those types of things. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Stinson. I plan to attend that, so there'll at least be two of us there. No, there's going to be a lot of people there. It's a great time, good food, and good fellowship with people from around the district. So I encourage anybody who doesn't have plans on Saturday evening to attend.
Be sure you register.
All right, next we have communications. So we'll start at the end there with Dr. Richardson.
Thank you again for all those that made comments. I appreciated all the things that you shared, and I think that's the highlight for me of each board meeting. Just briefly, in the last 2 weeks since our past board meeting, I visited Chihuahua High School and met with a number of teachers and staff and Principal Walwork, and appreciated their time and getting to know a lot of our teachers and becoming more familiar with what's going on at Chihuahua and the great things they're doing. I also visited Delta with Representative Newhouse and went back and also met individually with some teachers and staff after that tour that we took with Representative Newhouse this last week. And finally, I attended the STEM Possible event at Franklin, and great community collaboration event. Love to see that at lots of schools, and I know a lot of our schools do that type of event where we involve community members and businesses to bring things to our schools and put that on, and so I appreciate all those that did that. Thanks.
Yeah, we've had some exciting weeks. It was fun to learn about the mariachi bands and the guitar. So one of the things that our school district actually places in the United States, the whole United States, is we're one of the top 100 districts in our music program. And that is incredible. And it's something that Pasco School District can be very proud of. So it's neat to see some of those students highlighted, as well as the kids that did so well at Wrestling State. And I've been to the Pasco Educational Foundation Scholarship Dinner. I actually have a wedding I have to be at that evening, or I would be there, but it's a great opportunity to see these kids, to see kids perform and learn about some of these things. And the teacher that they highlight is great. It's just a really neat evening, so I encourage you to go to that if you can.
I appreciated Representative Newhouse being here and going around to the different schools. The students did a great job taking him around at Delta and at Stevens. His interaction with the students was great, and at Chihuahua. I appreciated how there was 2 AP classes that met in one classroom, and they had some pre-questions that they had written out for him, and he just did interaction with them and had them ask questions. And it was really great to see how the kids interacted with him and tried to ask him the hard questions, and he just reacted to them and got them really involved in it. So I really appreciated how he talked to the kids and got them involved. So it was a great day with him.
I also liked how he and the Congress Newhouse interacted with students. I felt that we learned a lot about him and he learned a lot about us. And yeah, I was very excited taking him around Chihuahua and showing him our hallways, how far it can be to walk to a class. Also, I'm excited that next Monday track starts, finally. And I've also been admitted to WSU Pullman, so that's exciting.
Good evening, everybody. Nice seeing you all here. The first thing I would like to say is I actually give a big shout out to Megan Nelson for putting up our first annual Pasco School District Robotics Competition. Can we just give her a round of applause, thanking her for that? I really find it nice seeing how the Pasco School District is evolving into a bunch of STEM stuff, and it's really nice to see that. I also want to thank her for the opportunity to be the MC for that. That was really nice, an awesome experience to see our little elementary kids build robots that I probably can't build, but it's nice to see them. Also, I was able to go around with Congressman Newhouse, and one of the nicest things was to know that our little elementary kids are dissecting frogs and all this awesome cool stuff that I didn't get the opportunity to do that, but it's really nice to see how the Pasco School District is moving forward, and we are evolving into this great district, and I'm very proud of us, of you guys, the citizens, the administrators, and the teachers. You guys are doing a great job. I thank you for all that. What else I had one? I was gonna say something. Okay, well, also, I was able today to go to Park Middle School and do some 8th grade recruiting. Nice to see the enthusiasm in some kids that want to go to Delta High School. And that's about it. Have a nice one, guys.
Good evening, everybody. I also was able to participate in Congressman Newhouse's tour of the Pasco School District. It was great to see how he interacted with students and was able to engage our students in civics on a national level. Also, a shout out to not only our dance team but our state wrestlers too at state. Jake Covington placed 2nd place, so he's not here anymore, but I would have wished him congratulations through the microphone. I was also able to participate in the National Honor Society project with Fieldstone Memory Care. We were able to give Valentines to senior citizens that don't typically get mail, and it was important, especially to me, to connect our generation with past generations, and as a aspiring neurologist, to hear some stories about Alzheimer's and the tragedy that a lot of families experience. It was good and eye-opening for myself. I'd also like to congratulate Juan on his admittance to WSU. That's awesome. Thank you. Have a good night.
This past couple of weeks, also attended the STEM night at Franklin Elementary School. Lots of community partners there, lots of activities for the kids and parents to witness and be involved in there. Tomorrow night, going to the Robert Frost Science Fair, hope to. Tomorrow morning, I'm going over to Olympia to visit with our legislators again. We are just going to follow up on our ask for the pre-K facility, as well as talk about the levee cliff and how that's going to impact our district. So going over to do a little legislative work there. And I also attended a couple of the schools, Stevens, and a lunch at Chiawana with Congressman Newhouse. And great to see the work. Stevens, I was only at that one school where the students actually talked, but it's impressive to see some of the things that are going on there and the leadership of those students. And finally, just want to recognize Troop 149, who is here with us tonight. Steve Dilley is Scoutmaster, and Devin Libert. And then I recognize 2 of the boys. I know one's a Woodward and one's a Mon. I can't. Who's the one next to you there, Steve?
Ethan Zerker.
Zerker. Oh, okay. And then next to you, Devin?
Caden Bruns.
Bruns. Okay. Well, welcome, Troop 149.
Last week I attended a LIGO celebration, I guess as a representative of the district. I saw several science teachers out there, and they were celebrating their big discovery of the black holes that collided billion-plus years ago. So that was great. It was great to see them getting people involved, and I know they get our school district involved. We can have field trips out there, that kind of stuff. So it's great to have these local opportunities for our kids that are involved in these STEM initiatives, and also all of our students to see that there are many great jobs, really close to home if you get those science, technology, engineering type degrees, and you have a good future ahead of you with interesting career possibilities. I visited New Horizons to pick up some Valentine's flowers in a floral arrangement from their floral design class, and they were beautiful. My wife liked them. I think she's here. She also taught floral design in the district in the past, and I know that those floral design teachers are awesome. They teach those kids how to make these floral arrangements. They look like you bought them from a professional place. So I encourage any of you, when you have Valentine's Day or they're making Christmas wreaths or other things, to get a hold of any of the 3 high schools, Chiawana, Pasco, or New Horizons, and order those. You'll be happy that you did that. I stopped by Emerson and took a visit, so I appreciate the staff there that gave me the tour. We talked a little bit about one of the things we're going to get a reporter discussion on here, the Community Eligibility Program. They're one of our pilot schools for that program. And like everyone else here on the board, I attended the tour with Representative Newhouse. And although, you know, we talk about federal and state overreach a lot, and we don't always approve of what our elected leaders are doing there, I think it's really important that we all continue to cultivate those relationships. And so thank you for the district staff that helped set that up. And it was great to hear Representative Newhouse's perspective on many issues.
So I, like many of the people who've already spoken, attended a lot of the same events. I did want to remind the board and invite the community to another round of community conversations. On February 25th, I will be at the West Pasco branch of the Mid-Columbia Library from 4 to 6:30 for just an open dialogue and opportunity for informal conversation. We sit down at a table, kind of like around the dining room table, and just have great conversation around the community's perspective about the district and suggestions about moving forward. Probably one of my favorite events that I get an opportunity to do. And then we'll be doing another round of those in March, the 11th and the 21st, and those will both be over the lunch hours from 11 to 1:30. The one on the 11th will be in West Pasco, and the one on the 21st will be in downtown Pasco. So thank you.
We'll move into the reports and discussion. The first thing we have is a policy reading by Ms. Thornton.
Good evening, Board President Lehrman, Deputy Superintendent Whitney, and board members. The policy that I have for you tonight is a revision of Policy 3313. This is a policy that addresses state law requirements concerning restraint and isolation of students. This is a relatively new policy to us. It was adopted originally in 2013 in response to state legislation that applied specifically to restraint and isolation of special needs and 504 students in the district. In 2015, the legislature expanded the application of the law to all students in the district and also clarified some definitions in the law and made some changes with regards to the reporting procedures. So with the policy update, we will also be updating our forms and procedures, but what's before you tonight is the policy revision.
I've got a question on this. Is this a revision that we did based on our examination of the law, or is this a WASDA recommendation? Is this a combination of the two?
It's a combination of the two. We have implemented this policy at the district level slightly different than the way WASDA has incorporated the law into WASDA model policy. WASDA has a model policy on use of force, which we have chosen not to adopt for a variety of reasons, and so instead we've developed this policy.
Okay.
And if there are no other questions, we'll bring this to you for second reading and approval at the next board meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Thornton. Ms. Flynn will introduce the next topic.
Yes, I would like to introduce Mark Garrett. He is the supervisor of our data, and he takes care of all the technology in the district, and he has an assessment update for us tonight.
Thank you. President Lehrman, Deputy Superintendent Whitney, members of the board, appreciate this opportunity to update you on another change-filled year in assessments. So here's the calendar of the last half of the school year when the majority of the assessments are given. We'll go ahead and step through these assessments. I can explain the assessment to you and anything that's changed over the previous year. We're going to keep our focus on standardized assessments, which are primarily administered at the district and state levels. So the first two assessments we're going to look at are WAKIDS and DRA EDL. These are administered at the elementary level. So with the implementation of full-day kindergarten district-wide came the required administration of WAKIDS. Previously, the district has used a locally developed kindergarten assessment, but has used this opportunity to retire that assessment. As you're well aware, WAKIDS assesses students in 6 domains: social, emotional, physical, language, cognitive, literacy, and math, and then measures students against attributes that are commonly found in entering kindergartners. Also, at the end of the 2nd and 3rd trimesters, staff complete subsections of the WAKIDS assessments in order to report progress to parents. The DRA and EDL are one-on-one reading assessments and given to kinder through 5th grade students. Students are asked to read passages while proctors observe several factors such as fluency, accuracy, and comprehension. The district uses the DRA and EDL to meet several requirements, including the state's 2nd grade reading assessment requirement and learning assistance program identification and monitoring. The DRA and EDL are administered in the fall and spring, and then there's an optional testing window mid-year. In the spring, our bilingual classrooms take the DRA in addition to the EDL, so district staff can monitor students' application of the content knowledge in English from their primary language, and you've heard this referred to as the biliteracy zone. All right, next assessment, we're going to take a peek at ELPA 21. So the assessment formerly known as WELPA has transformed into ELPA 21, or the English Language Proficiency Assessment for the 21st Century. The ELPA 21 was developed by a group of 11 states and is an assessment based on the new English language proficiency standards and addresses the language demands needed to reach college and career readiness. Like the WELPA, the ELPA 21 assesses students in 4 domains: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. However, unlike the WELPA, the ELPA 21 is administered entirely online. It even includes the speaking portion where students are narrating their responses into a headset with a microphone. And we actually had 5 buildings participate in a pilot last year and receive positive feedback about the platform and the format of the assessment. So building staff have begun administering the ELPA 21 to English language learners. The ELPA 21 is administered once a year and monitors students' acquisition of English language until they display enough academic English to exit the state bilingual program. Even though students earn a score and exit from the state bilingual program, students are still supported throughout their academic career via our late exit bilingual program model. All right, Supera and MAP are used to qualify and monitor students for the State Learning Assistance Program LAP, monitor learning progress in our ELL students, and also act as a second data point to kind of corroborate our state assessment scores. Supera and MAP have both been administered with little changes since 2006, so we have some nice longitudinal data around these assessments. So in order to measure academic progress of our ELL students, we administer Supera. This is a math and reading assessment administered in Spanish. Supera is given to students who receive Spanish instruction in grades 2 through 8. The assessment removes the language barrier for our ELL students, so students can demonstrate their knowledge without English interfering in their answers. Supera measures students against their Spanish-speaking peers nationally, so the district has a relevant norm group for comparison as well. The measures of academic progress, or MAP, it's a computer-based adaptive test in reading and math, and it's administered to all students in grades 3 through 8. The assessment dynamically adjusts the difficulty of the questions based on the students' responses. And this is exactly how the Smarter Balanced assessment is structured. It's an adaptive test. The benefit of that is that the assessment, each assessment is meaningful and it allows students to be challenged at their individual ability level. The MAP is administered at the beginning and at the end of the year, which allows us to measure growth. We are required to report growth for students participating in the LAP program, and the MAP helps fulfill that requirement. So the next two assessments have to do with state and federal accountability at the elementary and middle school level. The second year implementation continues for the SBAC. The summative assessments are given during the last 12 weeks of the school year, and the interim can be given throughout the school year at the district's discretion. The SBAC contains 3 parts: the computer adaptive portion, a performance task, and then a in-class activity, which basically acts as a primer or practice for the performance task. The computer adaptive portions and the performance task portions are both online, but the in-class activity does not require computers for that. Unlike the MAP and MSP, the SBAC is administered over multiple sessions. However, we do have that 12-week window, which allows some scheduling flexibility. So in talking about the SBAC, we frequently hear about the interim and summative portions, but there's an additional component of the SBAC system called the digital library. It's in its infancy, but the vision is that it becomes an online collection of instructional and professional learning resources contributed by educators for educators. So the resources on there would be aligned with the intent of the new standards and would help educators implement the formative assessment process. So the last big chunk of assessments all relate to high school and meeting the state assessment graduation requirements. The assessments apply to different cohorts or groups of students. So with the implementation of SBAC at the grade 11 and our existing state assessments tied to high school graduation requirements, which are typically given at grade 10, the assessment system at the high school level has become this overlapping web of assessments, and it's taken by students based on their graduating cohort. In order to give students enough attempts to meet their assessment graduation requirements, the state is still maintaining its own 10th grade ELA and math assessments. However, the 11th grade Smarter Balanced will be used for federal accountability purposes. So this means all 11th graders will be taking the Smarter Balanced assessment. There is a caveat to that, and I'll touch on that on the next slide. So you can see the table here of the assessment graduation requirements for the next 4 years of graduating students. As the SBAC assessments are implemented, students will have the option to meet standard on those or the legacy exams. The overlapping continues until the class of 2019, and that'll be the first class required to meet standard on the SBAC, math, and ELA. So as I mentioned, Washington will continue to offer the 10th grade ELA exit exam in order to give students the opportunity, an additional opportunity to meet that assessment graduation requirement. The state's 10th grade ELA exam is the same as the Smarter Balanced test. We have the same test engine. It's the same item bank. The only difference is that there's an exit exam cut score and then a college and career cut score, CCR cut score, and you can see at the table at the bottom of the slide there, the CCR cut score is at level 3. The exit exam cut score is about mid-level 2. So if a student meets the higher college and career cut score in 10th grade, the student will not need to take the SBAC exam in the 11th grade. So last year we had about 490 10th graders meet that CCR standard. So those students will not need to take the SBAC this year as 11th graders. So essentially almost 500 students will bank their score from 10th grade and they aren't required to take it in 11th grade. However, we did have about 215 10th graders last year that met the graduation cut score, but not the CCR cut score. So they scored in that upper level 2 range. Those students will need to take the SBAC again this year for accountability purposes. So the state recently announced that they will offer the math SBAC at 10th grade as well, giving students an additional opportunity to meet the graduation requirements. And similar to the ELA exit exam, there's going to be two different cut scores, that CCR cut score and then that exit exam cut score. And lastly, the end of course assessments look similar to last year, with the only change being students who are able to take the assessment. 9th graders can no longer access the math EOC assessment, so their first opportunity to meet the math assessment graduation requirements will be on that 10th grade math SBAC. The biology EOC will continue to be offered to students taking the biology course, and that's typically in 10th grade. The biology EOC will continue to be administered until a new assessment is developed using the next generation science standards. So it's important to note that there are alternatives to meeting standard on the high school assessments. Students who earn a passing score on the SAT, ACT, AP, or even another state's exit exam can qualify for a waiver. The most frequently used alternative is the collection of evidence. The COE allows students to compile work samples under the supervision of a teacher, and this typically takes place over the course of a semester. So students have plenty of time to develop their best work. Historically, we've had a good success rate with this. Last year, we had 600 COEs submitted, and 87% of those met standard. The one change for the COE is that the reading, writing, and algebra COEs have transitioned to the new standards. So the last opportunity for submission under the old standards was in January. Students are now working on math, ELA, and biology COEs for submission in June. You can see the table there on the slide that shows how many COEs were submitted in June, and then how many are in progress, or how many we expect to be submitted in June. Actually, I think I said January. How many were submitted in January? 119 there. So assessments, they're bittersweet. Few individuals enjoy giving or taking them, but the data that is received in return is used to focus resources, inform instruction, and guide professional development. When it comes to assessments, the best we can do is make each assessment worthwhile and as low impact as possible. And if you have any questions, I can go ahead and answer those.
Thank you for the presentation. A couple questions. You know, one of the some of the feedback we've gotten from the community, especially teachers, is limiting assessments obviously as much as possible, and I know that other districts are trying to do that. So on your chart with the, I counted 13 assessments there. How many of those are required by the state or federal government, and which tests can we conceivably drop?
And I think That was actually looked at in Mrs. Flynn's assessment committee. And so I think we have a comprehensive list of our assessments and what's required, and the majority of it, like I mentioned, there's a lot of these that are the state and federal accountability requirements. The little big chunk at the bottom, they all address meeting the high school graduation requirements. And then assessments that also address monitoring and identification purposes for funding sources.
So none of them. What's the short answer? I know it's not that simple, but when people say we want to decrease assessments, and maybe Mr. Olson or Mr. Polk can comment, what is the feedback? What specifically, because this is like, clear as mud, right? I mean, it's like so, and it's frustrating that our hands are tied in a lot of ways, and some of this we don't even know because they're still deciding and they're changing, and so I hear from a lot of frustrated parents who are like, does my child have to meet the biology requirement this year? And it's like not even a clear answer, and no one, it's just really frustrating as a parent. I can see how that's extremely frustrating, or as a teacher that's constantly preparing kids to take a test or administering tests or taking a test. So what specifically can we do to limit this? Or what is, because like I'm still confused about how we can limit it. I mean, I'm on board with this. I've taken thousands of tests in my life, and I don't want to inflict any more tests on kids that we don't need. But I'm having a hard time grasping what can we limit conceivably.
Okay, can I take a crack at this? And Mr. Polk?
Don't laugh. Anyone wants to, right?
If you take a look at the chart that Mr. Garrett has up there, S back and down, we have absolutely no control over what occurs there. The first one, the WA kids, again, no control over that. The DRA, EDL, we use for a second grade requirement. So in first grade, we have students that have reading recovery or the Spanish version of reading recovery at first grade as an intervention. So those teachers have used DRA historically and EDL. When second grade requirement came around, the only assessment on the list at the time was the DRA that had a Spanish version of it. So that's why we chose it to use in second grade. So we use it in first grade and we use it in second grade. So as Mr. Garrett has said, for accountability reasons for LAP, we have to have a pre and a post test in reading. So we have used the DRA for pre and post, or the EDL, to know which students need assistance in reading. So if I was going to need to answer the overlap is MAP and DRA. So both of those assessments can meet those pre and post test requirements in the federal regulation, which means multiple standardized assessments, so more than one, actually, and that's the SBAC and something else. We have used the DRA, EDL for as he said, for the literacy squared, and we know where kids are at. So the bilingual students in literacy squared classrooms are tested in the DRA and the EDL at the end of the year. That's the only requirement of the literacy squared. The ELPA 21 is another state requirement, and that's once a year. The feds require it, and the state has chosen ELPA 21. As Mark said, there are several states that use that assessment, and that's to monitor our English language learners in their development of language development. The SUPERA is something we chose as a district. Again, it's helping us to know where the kids are at academically in a language of their instruction. We don't really have a math assessment in Spanish. When we chose MAP, to use MAP in the district, thinking it was going to work for us to meet the pre and post accountability reporting, we were told that it was available in Spanish, and it wasn't. It's only in English, and there's an oral portion the kids can listen to get some clarification, but they take it in Spanish. So one of the reasons we chose to use SUPERA is because we knew language wasn't interfering, and we know exactly what the students were learning in reading and math. So short version, the answer to your question, the overlap is the DRA and MAP. But for primary, the elementary, we start using MAP at third grade, Mark? Yes?
Yep.
So we don't have anything K2 that's electronic. So that's why we use DRA or EDL.
And this is partly why we really need to attack this at a state and a federal level, because there's so little that we can do about it at this level. And I've talked to teachers with the DRA is a very time-intensive test, but as a parent of a special needs student, it's been really monumental in helping to direct her. So there's value in that. I have heard across the board from principals and teachers, some love MAP and some don't. My kids personally love getting their scores in MAP. It's what's nice about MAP is it's not super time intensive. It's all on the computer. And so there's teachers that just love to get the results because it's easy to administer and you get results twice a year to help guide instruction, where you get one at the end of the year, you can't guide instruction with it. So it makes it really difficult. The SBAC is so time consuming, and I'm hoping somebody discovers a way to shorten that test, because it's taking far too much of our kids' time. But it's, again, something we're going to have to attack at a state and federal level.
I guess what I'd like to see, if people have ideas, the teachers that know these, I mean, I really don't. When I was a kid, we didn't have any tests like this, right? You just did the best you could, I guess. I don't know how we did it. How did we survive without all these tests, right? I mean, I don't know how we turned out okay. But if teachers have ideas, or specifically, because I don't know all these tests to be able to say how we could modify it. It sounds like we have a couple options, and to me the way to approach that would be if the majority of teachers and parents and administrators feel like that we could eliminate one or two since there's some overlap. I'd love to see that feedback or ideas, because I mean I have no idea how to just say, okay, do this. We really need to know from the people that do it, and so if we could, I'd love to see that type of feedback. Like I said, I've read other districts across our state dealing with the same problem and wanting to limit it, but I don't really know how exactly to do that. But we just know that we want more time in instruction and learning and less time testing and preparing to take a test.
So I'm curious to know what our students think. Or do you guys think you're constantly being assessed? I guess, first of all, I mean, you guys have tests regularly, I would expect, or quizzes or some kind of assessment that you're doing. These assessments here, are these like a big deal? This is like everybody knows about these, and this is the one that we're afraid of, and we spend all year worrying about this test or these tests, multiples of them? Or
the only tests personally, the only tests I really, really worry about would be the ones that I need to graduate, like the EOC. Let's say the MAP test or something like that. I don't really, I put effort. Is that? No, that's not required, right?
So SBAC, have you guys done SBAC?
Yeah, we did SBAC. Well, we did SBAC last year. Last year was kind of tough for the junior class. I know last year we had a lot of students that walked out on the test, but I did. Yeah, I took the SBAC. Did you guys?
So how long did it take you? I mean, was this like a week-long period, or is it a?
And it was at a pretty bad time in the year, honestly, for us. It was right before AP exams, so we were crunching in, review before the AP exams, and to take 2 hours to go take the SBAC test was kind of an inconvenience to that whole process.
Also, for the SBAC, I didn't know that juniors were supposed to take it last year until a few days before. So I felt I went blinded and not knowing what was going to be on the test. So that's something I think we should work on, is preparing students for that test, because I felt I just went blinded. I didn't know what the test was about.
Well, I think we were told that it wasn't going to be a graduation requirement. So personally, I didn't find much use in it. But
just so you said a week. But how long were you actually taking the test? Was it a? Was it?
I think it was a day, and then next week we took another subject.
It was reading and math, right? Yeah, reading and math.
So, total time in the test?
Several hours.
It was depending on the student, because it wasn't timed.
Okay, but it wasn't like all day for a week. All day, every day for a week. No. You're doing these assessments.
I didn't understand the comment. if you wouldn't have taken the SBAC, you would have been in class anyway. You wouldn't have been able to be preparing for your AP exams, right? I mean,
Well-
you would have been going to normal classes.
Yeah, but in the normal class, we were reviewing for, I had statistics, and I had an AP statistics exam, and I couldn't be in the AP statistics class because I had to go to the library and take the math exam for the SBAC.
There's also, my kids are home every year for, why aren't you going to school? Why aren't you going to school till 11 a.m.? Because I already passed the test. So they are not required to go to school if they've already passed the test. So they have a few days every year that they're home, not in school, because other kids haven't passed, or they have, anyway, and they don't have to be, or they've already taken that test. So it affects kids, it does affect kids that way. I do have a question about the MAP test, because really we can't do a whole lot about anything but the DRA and MAP because it's state and federal requirements. And I did love what these young men did when we went to Olympia. And they said, we are required, in order to go to college, we are required to take the ACT or the SAT. And why not use some of those as end of course exits? And so I thought it was a great idea, and I really appreciated these young men encouraging our legislatures to do something that they want to study for, because they want to go to a good school, and it opens the door for kids that wouldn't necessarily take them, that, wow, look I got this score, I can go to college. It could open some doors. So I thought that was a great idea. I haven't pursued it a whole lot, but good for you guys for doing it. So do you guys even remember taking a DRA test?
I don't think I ever took it.
Aren't those the reading tests that, they're quite labor intensive from what I know, and they're reading tests that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that teachers give to students in the elementary level, is that correct? Right.
Right, and so for the younger kids, they sit and read, the student reads a passage, and the teacher, what it's called ticking, to see if the students are reading with fluency or rereading, or where they might need some support, or if they're skipping over words, that kind of thing. When students get a little older, they're given the passage to read, and they go sit, and a teacher then brings another student up and ticks along and goes back and asks comprehension questions and that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, those were stressful.
I recall stuff, and that's about it.
And it's a one-on-one test, because I've volunteered in classrooms where I've helped get the other kids into different groups doing different things so that the teacher can give this one-on-one test. So I know the DRA can be quite time-consuming versus, and you guys, do you remember taking the MAP test then? That was more recent.
The MAP, yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for me, I actually tried on that one because it was telling me if I would be one math ahead or not, or stay regular. So that's why I tried really hard. So I think if students find a benefit to it, they'll try real hard.
But if we could, make a recommendation, it would be, the less tests, the better.
Yeah.
And if you could prepare us for the more important tests, like the SAT, or something that we need to graduate, that would be nice.
Yeah, and it's important for us to pass these tests and everything. But I had spoken to Mr. Lehrman on our long car ride back from Olympia, and something that we both agreed on was teachers teaching to pass tests is not something that I think is beneficial for all of us, but really teaching for comprehension, and making sure that we have that. And a great SAT score to go along with it is awesome. But, yeah, it's a balance that we have to walk, I think.
I just had a question between Supera and MAPS. So the students who take Supera, are they required to take the MAPS as well?
Yes.
So it looks like almost all of these tests are required. We're not going to get out of them. Mr. Polk shaking his head no over here.
Some of them are required for grants that we get or for funding that we receive, but that's not the same as being required. Some of them are just meeting a requirement that has to be tested in some way, but not that specific testing.
Yep. Okay. We could replace them with another test. Okay. But
We'd still have to have a test. It would just be another test. Are there some tests that take a lot less work so that we can replace them with a different test? Is that what we're looking at doing?
Yeah, and as part of our curriculum adoption process with this new curriculum committee, as part of our new contract, the testing has to be aligned to the curriculum. It has to be aligned to the rest of the curriculum. So, thank you. I was just wondering if there was one of these available. So, as part of the curriculum process, any test that we have to give should be tied to what we're teaching in the classroom, rather than just teaching to artificial means, as sometimes may be seen as the case right now. So there are other means, and whatever curriculum we ultimately decide with, there will be tests provided that should meet some of those federal or state standards. And then, of course, we've agreed to, between the association and the school board, not to give any test that's not required by state or federal law starting next school year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, in the perfect world, the teachers teach to the standards, right? And then we take these tests, and the tests align with the standards, and you get a good idea of how the students are doing, and you use those results to, improve your teaching and learning, and let people know where they are. Not just teachers, but also students. But until we get to the perfect world, I think something we can look at is just messaging. I think a lot of the consternation with these tests are that a lot of the parents and students don't know why they're taking a lot of these tests. So telling them why they're taking the test, I'm not saying that's going to solve all problems, but also messaging what the results are used for. I got an SBAC results back for my third grader, and I wasn't worried about what it showed. It was like a thermometer that showed where you're at. Are you at standard? Are you below standard? But at our state school board conference we went to, there was a meeting on, what are you messaging to your public on this? And a lot of people were saying, well, we just send out the papers, and I think that's what we're doing. And this is one example where, yeah, if your kid's at standard, you get that paper, you're not really too worried. But if your kid's not at standard, and the words on that piece of paper are not at standard for the 10th grade SBAC, your kid's not ready for college, something like that, it can cause even more worries. So I think just we will continue to work as a district on messaging, I think, and alleviating some concerns there. Go ahead, Greg.
Doesn't want me to talk.
I think it's on. Just
Okay. And some of the concerns that we're getting from the teachers, or what I'm hearing from the teachers, is if they're required for funding or required for grants, is that money getting spent or brought down to where those kids are? And is it getting down to where we need to have it for those kids? I mean, and I understand if we have grants and we have funds that we need to get money in, the teachers just want to know, is that money getting down to those kids? And I think that's what we've always wanted, is make sure whatever we're getting and whatever is being provided or whatever we have to do, let's make sure it's getting to our kids. If it's not, then let's tell the state we don't want your money. I mean, and I know that's tough to say, and it is, but we really have to look at those things too. Is if it's not helping our kids, then why were we doing it anyway? And do we really need that money? And that's a concern I'm hearing from teachers.
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Olson. And I agree with Mr. Lehrman, that we want it to be meaningful as much as we can make it if we're going to do it anyways. But so the WA Kid seems like a good example where you're assessing a young child's development. When you have your teacher conference, you can point to that and say, we assess your child, they're struggling in this domain, you can work on these things, and that seems actually beneficial in some way. So the curriculum update that Mr. Polk talked about, I think that's a perfect way where we can kind of reassess it along with the evaluation of the assessments, and make sure that we're at least doing the most beneficial. If there are less time-consuming tests that are more applicable, things that are actually beneficial in some way, I'd love to see those recommendations where we can try to limit as much as possible. And I can't say I disagree with Mr. Olson that sometimes we may just add, we don't want your money because we don't like being told exactly what we have to do and spending all this time on something and not actually just having our kids be learning.
Yeah, I think it would be really beneficial to, we just learned how some of our Title I funding is being spent to help educate our parents, to help educate their kids better. And that, that to me seems very beneficial, that our kids can help, that our parents can help understand the system a little bit better and be more supportive of their kids in school. And so I've heard of a lot of things like that we use this grant money for in different ways, but I think it's key that we let our teachers know how that grant money is being used so that our teachers can understand the importance of, why they're stuck taking yet again another test. I do want to clarify too, there's formative testing and there's summative testing. And summative testing is year-end testing, and it actually doesn't do a whole lot of good to help the kids improve or anything that year. You teach to this test, it basically says how well that school did this year, and it might, and then hopefully it helps affect the next year. But for your student, it's the formative testing that's key, and that's not any of this testing. Those are some of them are just assessments at the end of the day. Some of them are assessments at the end of a 6 weeks or a 1 week cycle. And so those are totally different tests from what we see here. Those are the ones that teachers say, my kids got it, they didn't get it, I have to reteach. So it's a different kind of testing, and it's something that the teachers do in their own classrooms, and you don't ever see the data on it. So I did want to make sure people understand the difference between formative and summative testing.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. And the district's doing the district's doing a great job using a lot of this data in informing teaching and learning. And I know there's places where we can do better, and that's just our constant improvement that we're working on. So thank you for the update. All right. The next report will be introduced by Mr. Randy Nunemaker. Is he not here? He's here. This is Miss Kristen Blair with Nutrition Services.
Good evening, Board President Lehrman, Deputy Superintendent Whitney, members of the board. Thank you for the invitation to present tonight. The presentation I'm going to go through for you is on our community eligibility provision programs. Okay. So community eligibility provision is a United States Department of Agriculture program. And the USDA oversees all regulations within the National School Lunch and the School Breakfast Program. Community Eligibility Provision, or CEP, that operates within the School Lunch and the School Breakfast programs. USDA describes CEP as allows schools with high numbers of directly certified low-income students to serve breakfast and lunch at no cost to all students without collecting meal applications. So it's an alternate way to establish meal eligibility. So before I go into more detail about CEP, I'd like to review what the traditional method of determining meal eligibility is. Okay, so traditionally, free and reduced eligibility is determined by two methods, either household applications or direct certification. Household applications are income-based. Families that, or households rather, that are up to 130% above the federal poverty guidelines are eligible for free meals. Households that have income rather up to 185% of the federal poverty guidelines are eligible for reduced meals. So that's one method of determining eligibility. The second is called direct certification. And direct certification is exactly that. If a student belongs to certain categories, they are directly certified for free meals. Those would include households that receive food benefits such as basic food or temporary assistance to needy families. Perhaps the student is fostered or migrant or homeless. All of those categories, the students are directly certified for free meals. Applications are not collected for this category. Students in this category are also referred to as identified students, and identified student percentages drive eligibility for CEP. Okay. Okay, so now regarding CEP, in lieu of requiring families to submit meal applications. The USDA developed CEP for the purpose of having group eligibility or community eligibility. So if a school or a group of schools, or rather for a school or a group of schools to qualify for CEP, they have to have an identified student percentage based on April 1st of at least 40%. If they qualify for meeting that minimum of 40%, the following school year they may choose to participate in CEP, or the district chooses that they're going to participate in CEP. That would mean that they serve breakfast and lunch to all students at the school at no cost to them. We would not collect any meal applications for those students. Rather, families are asked to fill out a family income survey, and we'll talk about that more in a moment here. Okay, so under the traditional free and reduced system, oops, I'm sorry. Oh no, that's right, sorry. Okay, under the traditional system, we receive reimbursement based on how many meals we serve per each category of students, be it free, reduced, or full pay. And then the reimbursement is different in each category. Under CEP, reimbursement, it's still federal funds, so it comes from the same source, but the calculation on how we're reimbursed is different. And how the calculation changes is the identified student percentage, so let's take 40%, is multiplied by a factor that USDA sets. It happens to be 1.6. This will make a lot more sense in a moment here, so just bear with me. Okay, so if a school meets the minimum requirement for CEP of being 40%, we apply the 1.6 factor and we end up with 64%. So now what that means, of the meals we serve at that CEP participating school, we will receive reimbursement of 64%. Now, the higher the identified student percentage, the closer we get to full reimbursement. And the key number to that is if the identified student percentage is at least 62.5%, that will give us 100% reimbursement. Okay. So now speaking about this year, in September, we, as President Lehrman indicated, we are piloting CEP at 2 of our schools, Isaac Stevens Middle School and Emerson Elementary. Both schools last April 1st had an identified student percentage of greater than 62.5, so we are receiving full reimbursement or maximum reimbursement at those schools. We've also found that participation has increased at both schools as well as our per meal reimbursement. Okay, so this graph is a comparison of Emerson and Stevens of last year prior to CEP implementation and then this year. And it's the same September to December timeframe. How about September to December timeframe? Breakfast participation increased at Emerson. It was static at Stevens. However, lunch participation increased both at Stevens and at Emerson. Our per meal reimbursement also increased. I should note that the 2015 figures, I calculated those based on last year's reimbursement rates, just so we had a more accurate side-by-side, but our per meal reimbursement has increased. And the per meal reimbursement is a combination of breakfast and lunch. Okay. Both for Stevens and Emerson, the principal's primary concern about implementing CEP had to do with the family income surveys that I mentioned before. And let me explain why this is so essential. Some special programs such as LAP, all-day kindergarten, K through 3 funding, it's based on poverty data. And in a traditional school, poverty data would be reflective in free and reduced statistics. Well, at a CEP school, there are no free and reduced statistics. So CEP schools need a way to establish poverty data to maintain their funding. USDA also has a family income survey that we ask parents to fill out. Now, the caveat is receiving enough of those family income surveys back. And we know this is an actual concern because we had feedback from several Washington State districts that did not understand that link, and for a while their programs did lose some special program funding because they did not collect enough family income surveys. Now, knowing that, both principals made collecting those surveys a priority, and you can see the result is they did exceptionally well. They had a less than 1% non-return rate of the surveys, and their special program funding remained. I should also mention that the feedback between the two principals has been both very positive, and we're very appreciative that they were able to pilot this program for the district. Now, having had a successful pilot, they had several recommendations going forward. Obviously, the first is making collection of the family income surveys a priority. And they suggested that one fairly easy way to do that was making that survey part of the registration process at the beginning of the year. They also suggested assigning specific tasks to track, collect, and process those applications. Another recommendation was increasing the advertisement that a school is community eligible, as they ran into the fact that some of their families didn't realize that they may participate in school meals without cost to them. Okay. Excuse me. So looking at the next step, Stevens and Emerson may remain on CEP for several more years. Going forward for other schools in the district, after September 1st, I'll generate scenarios about what that would look like for other schools to participate in CEP possibly next year. And then with that, we will offer a recommendation at the April 26th board meeting about how you'd like to proceed. Okay, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I was surprised that there wasn't a higher participation when I looked at this beforehand, that there wasn't a higher participation on lunch.
A higher jump or a higher overall participation?
A higher jump in participation.
And that's a good point. Now, one reason that there's not as high of a jump is that the schools we selected already had a fairly high participation compared to some of our schools, but we did that specifically to mitigate any situation of how the family income survey went. So if they did not receive as many back, and the funding wouldn't have been impacted quite as much as perhaps another school with more students. But the principals also identified that perhaps if there had been a little more advertising about being a school that you may eat breakfast and lunch at no charge, that more parents would participate. So that's certainly something that we're looking at.
Has there been more advertising to that effect in the last couple of months, knowing that not all the families knew about it?
I don't know the answer to that. It was obviously a non-traditional start to the school year, so that was just one of the things that they suggested for next year.
For next year's kids, okay. And so right now you're giving us a recommendation. Do they not know if they want to continue it or not, or you're just holding out with that recommendation for April?
It's my understanding that Emerson and Stevens have no issue with CEP, so they would like to continue. The recommendation in April will be for if we would like to add CEP schools.
Okay.
So just curious, once they become a CEP school and they're receiving the benefit of lunch and breakfast, how, is that something they have to requalify for every year?
No, they don't have to requalify for CEP. That's a set cycle. And I said earlier, a 5-year cycle. That was an error. It's a 4-year cycle. But they do have to collect family income surveys each year.
Right. So if they qualify, and whatever year they qualify, they get it for the next 4 years?
Correct. They may continue for 4 years. If for some reason it doesn't work with the school, there's an opt-out at any time as well. And if the school was to opt out, they would just revert to the traditional free and reduced system.
Right.
So what percentage of family income surveys do you have to receive?
That I don't know. I don't know specifically. It's my understanding it varies a little bit with each program. I know it's a high percentage, but I don't have a specific figure for you.
Okay. So my concern would be, say we want to do this at 10 schools based on the data we get at the beginning of April. There may be some families that don't feel like that should be part of your registration to school to provide your family income. It sounds like there wasn't much pushback at these schools, but I can certainly think of people I know that would not appreciate having to provide that information. So I just don't know, what do you view as the negatives of doing this at other schools, and what negative feedback did you get? Because it seems like, gosh, well, if the federal government's going to pay for it, why don't we do it at all of our schools if they qualify, right? To me, it's like they present it that way, like, well, this is a no-brainer, right? Just fill out this, and then we're just going to give you all this money and pay for breakfast and lunch for all your students. I mean, why would anyone not want to do it? Do you know what I mean?
And yes, they do present it like that. But so the two main issues that we look at for nutrition services is how much we will receive in reimbursement, and that's essential to how high that identified student percentage is. And then the second, as you're alluding, is possible reduction in special program funding if they do not receive family income surveys back. Mark and a group of people, we are allowed to tweak the family income survey, so the USDA sets what has to be on it, and then we can tweak it for district purposes. They included information that for families, something to the effect of, this is helpful in maintaining the programs that your school receives, so please consider providing the data for us. And it was successful at those two schools, so they received a high number back.
I'd like to see the form, but it sounds like you said, less than 1% didn't turn them in. I mean, I'm surprised that's pretty successful. I mean, I'm sure it was presented as this, like you said, this is important to your school. Okay.
And I can either email you the form, or it is on our website as well.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. Look forward to hearing what the recommendation is on April 26th.
All right, thank you.
All right, next we have, the next report is a curriculum update.
It's my pleasure to introduce Suzanne Hall, who is working as our curriculum review facilitator for the English Language Arts curriculum review. I'd also like to recognize, do we have curriculum review participants or facilitators in the room? I see Carla Lobos back there. And then also our curriculum review committees are currently in the building doing scoring upstairs. So they definitely have been doing a lot of heavy lifting lately. So I want to recognize the participants of our curriculum review committees. So Suzanne.
Okay. Good evening, Board President Lehrman and Deputy Superintendent Whitney. And I'm here just to give you a brief update on what's been happening in the curriculum world as far as the review and what's ahead for us. For the last 6 weeks, we've had the instructional materials that have been selected as the top 3 out at the buildings, both ELA and math, for staff to review, get their hands on, and provide feedback via a survey. This Friday, we will be collecting those materials, and that will conclude the 6-week preview of staff of the materials at that time. We also completed 2 key events, one that Carla spoke to you about last report. We provided a training around the instructional materials evaluation tool. That's a very comprehensive tool that's meant to be used when you are looking at textbook series, with a particular purpose on finding materials that are most closely aligned to the Common Core state standards, as well as the research around instructional best practices. The other second event was we provided a vendor presentation, and beforehand we sent a protocol to each of the 12 vendors that were selected and asked them to make sure that they address the following. We wanted them to provide an overview of the program, the research behind their instructional design, the philosophy, and where in the program can they show us evidence that is aligned to the Common Core state standards. After the elementary presentation of the ELA materials, it became very obvious to the committee in looking at the information that these materials did not meet the criteria that we originally anticipated, specifically in providing comprehensive materials for our bilingual staff in Spanish materials. So as a committee, we met and we decided at that time that that particular series, Reach for Reading, would be eliminated from the top 3. And we made sure that we created a communication that went out to all the teachers, informing of them of that decision and the rationale behind that, as well as making sure our principals worked with that and made all teachers aware that that had been eliminated. The 2 series that remained met the criteria we were looking for, which was comprehensive materials in both English and Spanish, that they aligned to the Common Core state standards, and that they had been highly ranked by other districts and states for with credible national state and reviews. So for the past 3 weeks, as Michelle alluded to, we have had our scoring team, again, which was made up of the curriculum review team members and then the staff members that were added as technical support to help in the scoring. They have been busy at work 3 nights a week and on the weekends for the last 3 weeks doing the analysis using the IMET tool. And just as an example, you can see each team is going through every grade band and looking at anywhere from 35 to over 50 factors where they have to find evidence, and not just evidence one point in the textbook, that the evidence is found throughout the textbook, and you can see if it meets the criteria, it is being highlighted in green, and if it does not meet the criteria, it is being highlighted in red. And so what I wanted to show to you is how intense this process is, and it's very methodical. And we have people that are working hard to make sure that the team stay focused and calibrated on what the metric is specifically asking for. And as a result of this, you can see that it should be very clear which materials are most aligned to the research and most aligned to the Common Core state standards. Our hope is to finish this scoring by the end of this week. We're running out of steam here, but we have just had a tremendous amount of commitment from this staff. They have been relentless in doing a quality job, and we just cannot thank them enough. As they finish, what will happen is that the additional teachers that were brought on to help with the scoring will disband, and then next week we'll reconvene with our original curriculum review committee. And what lies ahead for them is that they will need to analyze all of the staff input that was provided, the parent survey input that was provided. They're going to need to review the final tally on the IMET scores, as well as conduct another screening on bias and sensitivity, which is required by the state and board policy. So you can see we still have a long ways to go, but we're doing great, and we're going to make that deadline, which would be having a recommendation to the IMC for March 15th, by March 15th. Any questions at this time?
Well, I appreciate the amazing job you guys are doing and the amount of time and effort that everyone is putting in. It's amazing, and I thank you for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let everyone know that we appreciate all the hard work you're doing.
We'll make the rounds in the building right now and tell.
So are there people here that were on that committee that have been doing this work, involved with that, can stand up?
They all went home? They just left, okay. So you can imagine they're doing a full day of teaching, then coming here and scoring till 7:30, 8 o'clock every night.
It's been an intense winter for them, hasn't it?
It has.
So, well,
They're proud of the work they're doing.
Good. We're proud of them too, and we're excited to see the results, and we're excited to implement it and see what it'll do for our students.
So thank you for the presentation and the work. Just a quick question, is a sense that we're heading in the right direction, that things are looking good, and that the prospects are good?
Beyond the exhaustion and fatigue, yes. I think one of the benefits of this tool is it is really getting us down to having objective facts and evidence to be able to stand behind what the decision ultimately will be. It's not going to be based on what I've liked, what we think is pretty or shiny. It really is going to be down to what materials best meet the instructional demands of the Common Core, as well as providing the instructional supports for teachers to meet the needs of all of our diverse learners.
And the material that's been reviewed, there looks like there's going to be a winner that comes out of this?
We certainly hope so.
Yeah.
We believe so.
we do. So, all right, thank you.
Now, do you have any information yet on costs for these, or will that just come in the future?
I think it'll come in the future. I mean, we have rough estimates from districts who've purchased these series to kind of, do some rough estimates, but then it comes down to negotiating with the vendors and seeing what they can throw in and add to sweeten the pot for us.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. So next we have action items. And the first item, 10A here on our action items, is confirmation of the appointment for the successor superintendent. Ms. Whitney was selected by the Board of Directors as the successor superintendent on October 16th, 2015. Ms. Whitney's appointment was contingent upon successful completion of duties and responsibilities as deputy superintendent beginning on July 1st, 2015. And successful completion of a designated transition period working in conjunction with Superintendent Sandra Hill during the 2015-2016 school year. Ms. Whitney is met periodically with the board for evaluation of performance under the transition plan as required. And per that contract for the deputy successor superintendent, the board must take action on the appointment and notify Ms. Whitney in writing on or before March 1st, 2016. So with that summary there, I'll open it up for discussion.
Mr. President, I move to confirm the appointment of Michelle Whitney as superintendent of Pasco School District beginning July 1st, 2016.
Okay, I'd like to make a comment. I was just giving other people to give a chance for discussion.
No problem. Okay, continue discussion.
Okay. So, I'm obviously in the unique position here. I'm the only member of the board that was not a member when Ms. Whitney was chosen last year. I was a community member, and so, I viewed the process from the community and participated as much as possible. And so I can relate to the feelings of the community throughout this process. And as a community member, I know many people felt that there wasn't a lot of transparency in the process, that the community surveys that were gathered weren't necessarily followed, as there was a strong sentiment about having an outside candidate, someone that's bilingual, someone that's experienced, various things. And so, not having participated in the interviews, I don't know exactly what happened during that time, but I can at least relate to the community feeling because I was part of that during that time. I appreciated Ms. Hall Lewis's comments at the beginning. at this time in our school district, the last year was extremely turbulent. It's quite a miracle. I feel that the levy passed, and obviously I supported that. But I think at this point, as a community, we really need to decide after the teacher strike and as the various things that have happened, that it's time to move forward. And we can't change what has happened in the past. We can learn from it, certainly, and I think we've all learned from the events of the last year. And we can each decide as an individual to move forward in a positive way. And I believe that Ms. Whitney should be evaluated based on merit and performance. And in the 3 months that I've been on the board, that's what I've done. And I have to admit she's done a great job. And so anyone that is still feeling bitter or upset about the strike or about the superintendent search process, or is hanging on to these feelings of feeling upset about how things went down, I'd encourage you to just move forward. I can relate to how you're feeling. I realize that as in the school board election, over 3,000 people didn't vote for me, and probably a lot of the board and district ministers probably didn't vote for me, and that's okay. And I have to move forward, and just we have to work together and just do what's best for our schools and community. And so I'd encourage, like I said, anyone that's still having a hard time or hard feelings of things that happened in the last year, that let's just move forward together. So many great things are happening. We're making lots of positive changes. Just right now, this is being videotaped. I mean, this is fantastic. There's more dialogue at the board meetings than the board meetings that I used to attend frequently as a community member. And I just think that we're really, everyone's trying to do their best. And so that's all I have to say. Thanks.
And I'd like to say I agree wholeheartedly with what Dr. Richardson says about moving forward. You know, when we talk here about honoring the past while moving towards the future, I think Ms. Whitney, I have great confidence that in her leadership and her ability to take this district into the future. And I'd say she's exceeded expectations that we had for in meeting short and long-term goals, and meeting the goals in her transition plan. And she also took on additional responsibilities due to some unforeseen circumstances that we had. So I would say, like Dr. Richardson says, we look towards moving forward and allowing Ms. Whitney to lead us into the future. Anyone else?
I too would like to, I guess, say something to that effect. Even in the interview process, I was quite impressed with Ms. Whitney, Mrs. Whitney addressing the things in our school that I had felt for some time needed changes, and which is I believe a large part why she was the one that we chose, because she was willing to work toward those changes. I too have been thrilled with her work, and she has exceeded my expectations. And when we hired her, I had great hope for the future. So I'm thrilled with where things are going. At the same time, I think it is our responsibility as a board to evaluate and make sure those evaluations are accurate and data-driven, and that we hold our superintendent responsible for the growth that our district makes. And I'm thrilled to say that Mrs. Whitney's on board with that notion as well. But we do, I believe it is our responsibility as a board to hold our superintendent accountable. And thus far, she has exceeded our expectations, and we will diligently continue to hold her accountable. But I wholeheartedly recommend her for this position, and I'm excited to see where she will take this district.
All that being said, Ms. Whitney is a first-time superintendent, and we're a very large district, so this is not her contract today, and that would be, my understanding, that's a separate issue, and so I think that should be reflected, that as a first-time superintendent, that should be reflected in the contract. Additionally, I just wanted to comment to one thing that I have noticed and appreciated in the last 3 months is that Ms. Whitney has done an exceptional job at trying to reach out to the community and receive feedback. And like Ms. Phillips mentioned, now we just want to see that implemented. So as you're providing feedback, I'd like to hear how you feel that your suggestions, ideas, feedback is being received and implemented as a community, because I think receiving the information is part of it, and then part of it is seeing change occur when we bring up issues. So that's something that I'll be evaluating on an ongoing basis as well.
Miss Whitney, you were a good principal when I was at Mac, and you'll make a great superintendent.
I want to just comment too. I was part of that selection team, part of the board at the time that we made that selection, and I didn't have any reservation then that we were making the right decision, and I think, and I have none today. I think Ms. Whitney has done an excellent job, and I'm not surprised. I think she will do great things. I think, as has been mentioned here, there are things we as a community have to decide which direction we want our district to go and the goals that we have. And then we as a board will pass them along to our superintendent and then hold her accountable to make those things happen. But I think it's incumbent upon all of us to recognize that we've got to decide where we're going, and we've got to get that feedback and input from the community, and then we as a board have to do our job in making sure that that happens. But I think Ms. Whitney will do a great job. I think she's shown that she's very capable. While she is a first-time superintendent, I think she will do a great job. So,
All right, now I'll entertain a motion.
The motion's already been made, we just need a second.
I second it.
So there's been a motion and a second to confirm the appointment of Michelle Whitney as superintendent of Pasco School District beginning July 1st, 2016. Ms. Smith, can you call the roll?
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Dr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Lankin? Yes. Mr. Lehrman?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right. Next action item is item 10B.
Not pretending for Michelle.
Okay, let's see what we got there.
Board President, Mr. Lehrman, Deputy Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board, tonight the district will bring forward 3 resolutions. The first resolution is 917 for the sale of district property. The district will request board approval for a sale of district-owned property not suitable for educational purposes. The district has received a donation of 1/3 acre parcel property along California Street, and I believe we have a picture of that location. Along California Street, a family donated this property to us in 2011. Several months ago, the district was contacted by an interested buyer. Declaring the property surplus initiates the process of moving forward with the potential sale of the parcel. RCW 28A 335-120 requires board approval to offer it for sale. Come back up. The district may sell property when it is not required for school purposes. In this case, due to the size, location, and parcel size, it is insufficient for school purposes and is recommended for sale. So at this time, the district would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll open it up for discussion first.
So I'm assuming we can sell this. It wasn't given on with conditions that we keep it for anything?
That's correct. There was no conditions.
With no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 917, authorizing the sale of parcel number 113491124.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second to approve Resolution 917, authorizing sale of parcel number 113491124. Ms. Smith, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Dr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Langen?
Yes.
Mr. Lehrman?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Thank you. The second resolution, 918, is for the acceptance of the commission report and final acceptance for the Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary School. The district is requesting board approval on resolution 918, accepting the commissioning report for Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary School project and accepting Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary School project as final and complete. Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary School is a state match project per WAC code 392-344-160 and WAC 392-344-165. The Board of Directors may accept the project as complete after review of the building commissioning final report, an inspection of the project, and receipt of certificates of completion signed by the architect engineer. A resolution accepting the building commissioning report and accepting the project as complete must be submitted to OSPI for the district to release the contractor's retainage bond. Engineering Economics, Inc. provided the commissioning services for the project. District staff and district commissioning consultant Design West Architects have inspected the documents for completeness and recommended the board approves the commissioning documents as presented. The commissioning report is available in the superintendent's office for your review. Based on the above, Pasco School District staff and Design West Architects recommend the acceptance of the Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary School project as final and complete. The recommendation of the architect is attached. Acceptance by the board initiates the final process with OSPI to declare the project certified as closed. Acceptance by the board also initiates the final process to release DGR Grant Construction's retainage bond. I will note there's two corrections to be made on this request or this resolution. Under the suggested motion, it's listed as Delta, and it should say Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary School, and then also on the title page, it should say Barbara McClintock Elementary School. So at this time, we would request approval of the Barbara McClintock Elementary Resolution 918.
Mr. President, I move to approve Resolution 918, accepting the commissioning report for the Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary School project and accepting the Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary project as final and complete.
Second it.
There's a motion and a second to approve Resolution 918, accepting the commissioning report for the Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary School project and accepting the Barbara McClintock STEM Elementary project as final as complete. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Ms. Langen?
Yes.
Mr. Lehrman?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Richardson?
Yes.
Thank you. The next resolution is 919, acceptance of the commissioning report and final acceptance for Delta High School project. To obtain board approval, this is to obtain board approval for Resolution 919, accepting the commissioning report for Delta High School project and accepting Delta High School project as final and complete. The Delta High School is a state match project per WAC code 392-344-160 and WAC 392-344-165. The Board of Directors may accept the project as complete after review of the building commissioning final report, an inspection of the project, and receipt of certificates of completion by and signed by the architect engineer. A resolution accepting the building commissioning report and accepting the project as complete must be submitted to OSPI for the district to release the contractor's retainage bond. Engineering Economics Incorporated provided the commissioning services for this project. District staff and district commissioning consultant Design West Architects have inspected the documents for completeness, recommend that the board approves the commissioning documents as presented. The commissioning report is available in the superintendent's office for your review. Based on the above, Pasco School District staff and Design West architects recommend the acceptance of the Delta High project as final and complete. The recommendation of the architect is attached. Acceptance by the board initiates the final process with OSPI to declare the project certified as closed. Acceptance by the board also initiates the final process to release Walker Construction's retainage bond. So at this time, the district would request approval of Resolution 919.
I am moved to approve Resolution 919, accepting the commissioning report for the Delta High School project and accepting the Delta High School project as final and complete.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve Resolution 919, accepting the commissioning report for the Delta High School project and accepting the Delta High School project as final and complete. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Dr. Richardson?
Yes.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Ms. Lankin?
Yes.
Mr. Lehrman?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Nunemaker. Next, we have the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have personnel, warrant approval, approval of the 2015-2016 salary schedules, overnight student travel for the Pasco High School Key Club to the district convention in Seattle, Washington, overnight student travel for the Chiawana High School Speech and Debate Club to the state speech tournament in Tacoma, Washington, overnight student travel for the Pasco High School Speech and Debate Club to the state speech tournament in Tacoma, Washington, out-of-state overnight student travel for the Pasco High School Distributive Education Clubs of America, or DECA Club, to the DECA International Career Development Leadership Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and approval of Valbridge Property Advisors.
Mr. President, I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Dr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Lankin?
Yes.
Mr. Lehrman?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Next, we have future agenda items.
So as promised, next board meeting, Ms. Sarah Thornton and team will be delivering the second in a series of 3 study sessions focused on capital projects planning. On the focus of the next meeting will be the 2016 capital facilities plan during study session starting at 4:30. During the board meeting proper, we'll have a report about information systems update from Mark Garrett, and also assets preservation and maintenance report from Randy Nunemaker. So I'll be looking forward to that.
And we have no executive session, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.